How did you kill her?
Choked her.
With what?
My arm.
Unsolved murder case in America.
You took the lives of 48 women. You snuffed them out.
He's an animal.
You killed them all.
You're nobody. You're an animal.
And I didn't make a list in my mind which ones I killed with the rope, which I killed with my arms.
We started out with one victim. Then we found a second victim. Then we found a third victim.
A cold case that left the entire Seattle drenched in fear. A prolific killing spree that would send chills down your spine. It is in fact the most notorious serial killing that shook America for over 2 decades. The Green River Murder Series. It's a story of a series of slaughter that became a nightmare, especially for teenagers, young women, and a socially oppressed section, sex workers. The Seattle weather was getting humid and cold as the rain sounded as if the devil was bowling. It was as if nature was hinting something terrible would take place that night. A telemarketer, Rebecca Gard, just got off work and now she had to make a choice. Wait for the bus in the cold climate or grab a ride home. The seemingly nice guy offered the lift and now she was having a cozy ride through Pacific Highway. She was also offered $20 in exchange for making love with the driver. She got into the car after checking his work ID and was having a cozy ride in the beginning. The man insisted that they drive to a trailer park where they can make out in the nearby woods. After a while, he tried to cover her nose. Rebecca couldn't breathe and began to convulse. She fought hard for her life and managed to survive the life-saving struggle. She pushed the man and ran to a trailer she found nearby. Rebecca desperately looked for her and she was let into a trailer. After experiencing such a tragic incident, Rebecca couldn't however go to the police.
And I choked her, but I didn't kill her. I think that was the very first one I choked. I never killed her.
She thought it would backfire as she used to work as a sex worker in the past and used to indulge greatly in drugs while back. This gave her the impression that her pleading won't be heard. However, she mustered the courage to talk about the unfortunate event in 1984. She remembered his face and his name, so police were able to put him under radar. It later proved not to be an isolated event as Seattle slowly slipped into the constant fear of having a psychotic killer on the loose. This incident was just a hint of the fact that America was stepping into a blood-soaked era. The 16-year-old girl, Wendy Lee Cofield, who was a runaway and had a great deal of issues in her life and was waiting for the rain to settle. The 16-year-old girl who suffered financially and would even pick blackberries as a part-time gig during summer to afford food, ended up having a gruesome death. A seemingly regular guy picked her up. Little did she know that she was slipping to a horrible death. The killer picked her from a foster home. She went through a brutal sexual assault as life slowly slipped away from her body. Her lifeless body was then thrown into the Green River. How someone could so cruelly alleviate human pain is an unanswered question. Now, the identity of the killer had left investigators perplexed for years. The killer went on a rampage and killed around 49 women, but in reality, many of the cases weren't even reported, and the number can go as high as 90. The killer would strangle the victims and then abandon their bodies in forested areas. It was later revealed that the killer assaulted the victims even after their death. Except for the fact that some bodies were found afloat on rivers, the investigators were never able to trace the trail of murder. Normally, when a tragedy like this happens, at least some would brand it as an isolated case. But it was clear to everyone's eyes that a horrific patterned killer was out there lurking around the corners trying to find his next victim. What was the motive behind this terrific crime? And most importantly, who was the killer? How was the victims even captured by the killer without anyone noticing? After decades of tireless efforts by the government, they finally caught the culprit. To an outsider, Gary Ridgway might have looked like a plainly regular guy who never gave the slightest impression that he was capable to lure those victims to torture and kill. To that, without anyone prying or suspecting him. The image of normalcy was quickly replaced by a feeling of disgust. The world now witnessed the unmasking of a dreadful serial killer who gave off creepy vibes.
You killed them all.
His prime motive was to kill as many prostitutes and runaways out there as he hated them. He had also occasionally targeted some victims who were walking home alone at night as his murder instinct gobbled him. Gary spent his whole life knowing that he was just trying to fit into the normal society and that he was, in fact, different. However, he didn't want to take in as a pervert, so he targeted prostitutes. At some point, we can figure out that the killer's sexual obsession was what turned him into a serial killer. Like we said in the beginning, he nabbed his victims from one of society's overlooked sections and discarded them in or around the Green River. So he became known as the notorious Green River Killer. Gary had an ordinary job of painting trucks. Meanwhile, he also had a string of wives and girlfriends. To make things worse, it was found that he was a necrophiliac. After strangling and killing his victims to death, he frequented their decaying bodies to satisfy his darkest insatiable desires. Was becoming a serial killer his choice, or did he have a traumatic past that might have led him to killing almost 90 women out there? Gary grew up in SeaTac in Washington in an average household. His mother was a sales clerk and his father was a bus driver. Gary claims that he was mistreated by his mother during his early teens. When he used to wet his bed, his mother would clean him up. At some point, he developed a strong desire to kill her, and he began fantasizing about it. That might have been the reason why he stabbed a 6-year-old in the woods. He said to the police, "I thought about stabbing her in the chest or in the heart maybe. Maybe, cut her face and chest." Gary said, "I always wondered what it would be like to kill someone." He was only able to hit the boy's liver and he escaped a tragic fate. In a recorded confession, he also revealed that he was in fact doing those unfortunate victims a favor by killing them. He admitted that he chose them because he knew he could get away with it and they wouldn't be missed or searched around. On the other hand, Gary's ex-wife Marcia Winslow believed Gary's mother Mary Rita Ridgeway has allegedly abused her husband by smashing plates over his head. She also thinks Gary was sexually abused by Mary. The killer thought about killing his ex-wife Marcia as he didn't want to remain as a twice-divorced loser. He began enjoying the brutality and violence he could use upon those unfortunate souls, and at some point, he lost count of the victims he killed. Can it get any more gory than this? Our thoughts exactly. In the 1980s, Gary was arrested for solicitation several times. Because he chose prostitutes as his victims, many would have never went to the police even after surviving the bitter life-death experience. Did anyone survive from this prolific serial killer? An 18-year-old Jill McCabe Johnson found him using the country western dance hall in Seattle during the late 1980 or the early 1981. She found him nice enough and felt safe while he offered her a ride back home. He now told Jill that he might have to use the washroom for a bit. Jill showed him the washroom, but he followed her into the bedroom. She never sensed any sort of danger and was only embarrassed about how messy her room was then. He soon began opening up his mind and spoke about his failed marriage. They decided to have an intimate time together. When the man heard the roommate come through the front door, he pounced and left almost immediately. After that, the man we have been talking about, or Gary himself, didn't contact her again. However, she did catch a glimpse of her nearby apartment several times. When the police began investigating and revealed the physical details about the suspect, a thought passed by Jill's mind that it might have been Gary. She even wrote to him to confirm. Soon she understood that she was right all along, and she had in fact escaped from a terrific death by the hands of a necrophiliac. In 1983, the police had to form a special task force to catch the killer on loose. Police were led to Gary again while investigating the disappearance of a lady whom a witness saw getting into his truck, but he escaped. In 2001, after doing many sophisticated tests, the cold case that had the investigators perplexed for years was settled with the help of a DNA link at last. The police caught the killer. Although he denied all the charges in the beginning, he later confessed to killing 48 women.
More than 48 women.
71, yes.
Right. You killed them all, Ridgeway. You killed them all.
Gary is now spending his life sentence without the possibility of parole at the Washington State Penitentiary in Walla Walla.
I picked prostitutes as my victims because I thought I could kill as many of them as I wanted without getting caught. Is that true?
Yes.
He got married 3 times, yet none of them truly knew the man well. What do you think about this notorious killer who took the life of so many unfortunate souls? Do let us know about your thoughts in the comments section. Don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button and tag along to find more crime thriller context. Until next time, goodbye.